Hi, this is Grandmaster Tsauce again, and I'm here to show you how to beat moves by black that avoid the main lines of the Danish Gambit accepted. If you haven't already watched the first two parts of this series, I would recommend that you do that first. This is the third of a 7-part series on the Danish Gambit. White plays e4, black plays e5, d4, black takes c3, black takes again, bishop c4, and black takes the final pawn. So, white's down by 2 pawns, has great center control, and is very well developed. You may notice some holes in white's position, but these are actually amazingly hard to take advantage of. So, if you've never before seen this gambit, and your opponent in a tournament game or a blitz game has just played this against you, you'd be looking for some holes in white's position. One of the most obvious holes is the pawn on g2, which can be attacked by queen to g5. This is a move that's actually made amazingly often by amateurs who've never seen the gambit before, but it's very bad. White could play pawn to g3, which defends the pawn. Well, it actually indirectly defends this rook, but he's actually got a much better move, which is knight to f3. Here, white should take the pawn on g2, after which rook to g1 makes the queen move again, and here white has a winning move. Do you see it? Bishop takes f7 check. Black has to move to d8, because if he takes the bishop, then there's a nice knight fork. And then white has another great move, which is rook takes g7. And here, black can't actually take the rook, because here white wins the rook on h8 and has a large lead in development and should win pretty easily. Right now, black's knight is being attacked, because if white takes with the rook, black will take with the rook, and then white has one more attacker. So he'll probably go knight to e7, and here white has another great move. Rook to g3. Double attacks black's queen and the rook on h8. White should be able to win very easily from that position. So the move queen to g5 is not good at all. What else could black try? Some people play bishop to b4 check. This is an interesting move, and he's hoping that after something like bishop to c3, he will be able to exchange off that white's well-developed dark-squared bishop. Although we're not actually going to move the bishop to c3, instead we'll move the knight there, which blocks the check and just develops another piece. Here, if black takes the knight with his bishop, then white can just recapture with his own bishop and should have a great attack, especially on the g7 square. So a lot of times black goes knight to f6, and then white should go to e2, developing another piece and getting ready to castle and defending on c3. And now black will probably take this e4 pawn, because a lot of people who took 3 pawns on the first 4 moves, like they would have if you got to this position, would take another free pawn if given the chance, and then white should just castle. Now, like, black, he's almost forced to take this knight, and then after white recaptures with his own knight, he is in much better position and has a great attack on black's king side. One example of the way things could go from here would be black short castles. Knight goes to d5. Bishop goes to d6. And queen goes to g4, threatening checkmate in 1 on g7, with his bishop defending. Then black has only one good move, pawn to g6, and then white plays knight to f6 check. King goes to h8, and queen goes to h4, once again threatening checkmate. And black's pretty much gotta play pawn to h5, but white's got a great move here. Do you see it? White can just take this pawn, and black's in check, so he can't recapture the knight. He's got to get out of check, go back there, and that's checkmate. That's just another typical Danish Gambit attack. You don't have to memorize the lines exactly, just the ideas. Another interesting fifth move alternative for black is queen to e7, to which white should reply by playing knight to c3. The main line from this position runs pawn to c6, knight from g goes to e2, pawn goes to b5, and the bishop retreats to b3. Still staying on the great diagonal though. White's slightly better in this position because of his large lead in development. All of black's minor pieces and rooks are still on the back row, and only his queen is out. And as you probably know, you should develop in the other order: minor pieces, queen, and usually rooks last. If white attacks quickly, black will have no chance to defend his king. I will probably include a few games from this position in the last two parts. The last unusual attempt by black is knight to a6, actually. It looks very weird, but it's recommended, and some people actually call it the refutation to the Danish Gambit by some great players. First, if white's satisfied with a draw, you can get a perpetual check after bishop takes f7 check. King takes f7, and queen to h5 check. And king to e6. Queen goes to f5 check. King goes to d6. Queen goes to d5 check. King goes to e7. Queen goes to e5 check. And it's just impossible for black to get out of these checks, and the game is drawn. If white wants to go for something more than a win, then obviously you shouldn't try to have a perpetual check. He should well, obviously white has a large lead in development. It's his turn to move, and black's knight is on the rim, and knights on the rim are very dim. He should probably play knight to c3. At least, yeah, that's what he should play. Here black has a few options. Since the knight to a6 is the least common, there isn't much. Since knight to a6 isn't very common, at least not in tournament play, usually just in books, then pawn to c6 is usually a great move because it gives the knight a good place to go to on c7. And then white should play knight to f3. The most common line from this position is pawn to b5, followed by bishop to b3, and later white short castles. Black has already spent enough time moving pawns, and moving more pawns isn't going to help him. Look at all of black's undeveloped pieces. They're totally out of the game, and white should be much better. One common positional idea for white is to move the knight from c3 to e2 and then over to g3. It's a great defender, and it can also move up to attack very easily. So these are black's not so good tries to beat the Danish Gambit. Thanks for watching. My next video will be on the 3 good fifth moves by black. Even against these, white can keep an advantage. I hope you win with the Danish Gambit. This is Grandmaster Tsauce signing off.